Hello and welcome to LedgerCast. My name is Brian Krogsgaard, and I'm really excited for the first time in an interview format to bring on my friend Derek Walczek. I almost mispronounced your name.
It's okay. It happens. I imagine people do the same with your last name.
Yeah, it happens a lot. Derek and I are going to be doing some interviews together where we talk to people that are running projects or for some reason are involved in a project that he's neck deep in. He's neck deep in a lot of projects in the crypto space. You're a certified investor.
Yeah, I'm an accredited
investor. I keep saying this.
Yeah, you do. Certified. I'm certified crazy right now in this market, but yes, I'm an accredited investor.
Yeah, so you're an accredited investor, and you're bringing kind of a different set of eyeballs to the table than what I'm used to, which is just looking at charts and, trying to find out if something's going to go up or down. You're looking at things with a longer term lens, and you've really done a lot of research in the space. And I'm excited to have you here to interview the Switcheo team. You brought this project to me. I had no idea what it was. And basically, this is the first DEX on Neo.
That's right.
So, it's the first one that's launching. They're beating somebody to the punch, right?
That's right. There's Next, which is with City of Zion, and there's another one that's coming. But I think the Switcheo guys are going to beat them all to the punch.
Okay,
and open first.
So they're supposed to unlock tokens from a private sale and a public sale.
That's right.
March 19th, and then they'll release the product at some point.
Yeah, we'll find out when. We'll ask them.
Yeah, we did just record this interview. I'll admit that we're post-recording the intro. But so we talked to them about what they're building, what they're doing, and it's a good conversation. So I think people will enjoy to hear their perspective. Do forgive us if the audio quality or video quality, if you happen to be watching this, if it's a little low. We are across the world recording completely different times. It's late at night for two old dads.
Very much so.
So thanks for joining us. And with that, I'm really happy to bring on Ivan and Henry and Jack from the Switcheo team.
The decentralized exchange is in essence a smart contract where trading happens completely on the blockchain. In this case, for Switcheo, it's the Neo blockchain.
So how did you guys arrive at the decision to build a DEX for Neo versus other platforms?
So the reason why we even started building Switcheo was because we looked around at the other exchanges. Okay, so the reason why we actually started building the Switcheo exchange was because we ourselves are traders. And we saw existing decentralized exchanges out there. Previously, it's mainly for Ethereum, such as EtherDelta had a very bad user experience as compared to centralized exchanges. And that was the primary reason why most people are still on centralized exchanges. So we were thinking of building a better DEX. And it just so happened that the new COZ, City of Zion, basically the community groups, was launching their first DX competition. And that's when we were like, hey, let's kill two birds with one stone. Let's win this competition and let's build an awesome DX for people to use. So we managed to clinch basically the price. And that gave us the confidence to say that, hey, you can do this. And so far, the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive in terms of what we have shown, what we've been doing, and what we have saying we're going to launch.
When was that contest?
So the contest was around the November-December period. Since then, we have advanced, we have progressed quite a lot in terms of both the technology and the user experience and the whole product in general.
That's November of December just of 2017?
Correct.
Okay. So when you were talking about comparing or contrasting what y'all are building compared to traditional decentralized exchanges you were seeing, specifically, are you referencing like EtherDelta or even some of the newer ones that have come up in the latter half of 2017?
Mostly EtherDelta. Recently, I think on Ethereum, there's IDEX, which I think is an improvement. They do off-chain order matching, however. So it's only a hybrid decentralized exchange. But it's still, I think it's still quite a far cry from centralized exchanges as people know it. When you look at IDEX versus say Binance or even Bittrex, I think people get scared off by the unfamiliarity of the decentralized exchanges at this point in time.
One of the things that I've seen as a critique of a decentralized exchange is if it's fully on chain, then you have to pay gas prices to post an order or do anything. And that's part of what affects the user experience. So how are y'all setting yourselves apart from a user experience perspective? And if it's all on chain, are you avoiding some of those issues like having to pay fees to take any action on the network?
Right, that's an interesting question. So for the neo blockchain in particular, you can due to the way that it's built, it's actually possible for the exchange to pay for the gas fees even from the get-go. Furthermore, because of how the neo blockchain is built currently, the first 10 gas that anyone spends is actually free. So in essence, trading on our platform at the start is going to be free besides the trading fees. There's no actual system fees involved, at least at the start or until Neo changes how the pricing structure works for transactions. However, this is Neo specific, and we're actually going to look at the other blockchains, including Qtum and of course Ethereum. So for the other blockchains, I believe the technology has to feed the blockchain, the individual blockchains, and so we won't use a one-size-fits-all kind of strategy. And there are workarounds to having the contract pay for the gas, even in Ethereum and I would say Qtum. In fact, Qtum's model is more similar to Neo. But anyway, our stance is always not to do something for the sake of it. We always most efficient, the most practical way to give our users the security they need, and at the same time the user experience and the UI that they really want to use to trade.
So you mentioned when you were on Maddie's podcast, I guess a day or two ago, and I love this quote. You said that that building a DEX for the blockchain is not rocket science. Meaning it's not a hard thing to do. It's a great quote. And so my question is, why hasn't there been a DEX that's been built for Neo or for Qtum or the other things? Because to me, that's the lowest hanging fruit, the most logical DApp. Why do you think that hasn't happened already?
I think, that's what I always ask my team, and that's why I always tell them we got to do this fast because people are going to realize this is a sure win. Like, everyone's going to follow us. So that's one thing. But aside from that, I think the thing about cryptocurrency and the blockchain ecosystem in general is that a lot of the projects you see are not really they don't really use the full potential of the blockchain, or they're only incidentally making use of the distributed ledger. So a lot of projects, and it's actually easier to have completely off-chain project and then just put certain stuff on the blockchain and then raise a huge sum for that. Right? That's even easier than doing a DX, to be honest. And I think that's where a lot of projects are going nowadays. The other thing about DX is, of course, there's a lot of funds involved, so people are hesitant to do a project where there's so much money actually flowing through. But at the end of the day, that's actually the whole purpose, the whole point of distributed ledgers of blockchains in general. And that's why we want to build this, because it's actually something in line with the whole philosophy, the whole point of our ecosystem. Yeah.
What are some practical examples of ways you can take advantage of the blockchain that you don't think are occurring right now? Because my understanding of the current DEX ecosystem has been that the technology is the limiting factor in creating a great exchange. So where is it being underutilized?
I think so. There's two questions there. One is about the technology, about the DEX. So let's talk about that first. So for DEXs in general, I think there's actually quite a few attempts on Ethereum to have to improve how the decentralized exchange works. For example, Kyber, which is basically a decentralized air swap. Sorry, not air swap, a decentralized shapeshift. And then there's air swap and zero
X. Yeah.
Right. So it's not to say that there's no technology or technology is a limiting factor. It's just that there really are different ways to do it right, and people are actually tackling it in different ways. So that's for the DX portion. The other thing is also for projects that use the blockchain. In general, I always like projects that either make use of the trustless the trustless nature of the blockchain. For example, a DX, you don't want to actually hand your money over to anyone. That's the first type of project I really like. The other is improving the security of blockchains, because when it's trustless, you also need it to be secure. Right? And finally, it's projects that improve the scalability of blockchain, because this scalability is actually in conflict with trustlessness and security. The more security you have, the slower it is. The more trustless it is, it means it's more decentralized, and therefore the slower it is as well. So for this whole ecosystem to work, you really need all three of it. And any project that uses or improves any of the I feel they're really good projects.
I'm thinking through what you were saying there about the scalability, and maybe it's my ignorance of the Neo blockchain, but I know in terms of Ethereum and others, they are trying to address how they can manage real scalability, the type of scalability that a centralized exchange can manage, for instance, with thousands of actions per second or tens of thousands, whatever, relative to whatever it is, hundreds per second that these current blockchains can handle. And they're doing things like looking at plasma and all these other things that are either second layer solutions or whatnot. What are the challenges that you're facing trying to scale a decentralized exchange, or think about how you will scale a decentralized exchange within the Neo network?
Right. So for the Neo blockchain in particular, it's actually the opposite. So Neo actually forgoes some of the decentralization in favor of scalability. So the Neo actually has the opposite problem, where they actually have quite a decent transaction rate. They claim to be 1,000 transactions per second. I don't know if there's any empirical tests yet, but let's take it as that. And that's quite a lot more than any other blockchain already. So Neo's blockchain, Neo's problem currently is the opposite, where because they start off as a permission kind of system, meaning that anyone can join it, but the consensus is decided by only a couple and also different consensus nodes. So now the problem, or rather the thing that they're tackling, is how do you try to decentralize this a bit more? How do you make it more trustless and distribute the consensus to more people, but at the same time without affecting scalability and also without affecting the security of the system? So that's going to be interesting to look at. They are beginning to decentralize more, so we'll see how it goes. Of course, on the other hand, there's also projects like Trinity. I don't remember which, but they are basically building the Raiden networks for Neo as well. But those, for Neo in particular, that might not be as pressing as the need to decentralize. At least I feel.
Yeah, I was curious about Trinity, because obviously they're the solution for Neo and being able to scale. But if it can already do 1,000 transactions a second, I mean, that's pretty fast, and that certainly kills Ethereum 7 per second or whatever it is. Getting into some details of the ICO, what's your project hard cap?
So our project hard cap is currently at 8.3 million. And the market cap, we will be releasing basically 75% of the tokens. 25% of the tokens will be released on vesting schedule for our team.
Okay. And obviously the Switcheo token will be used on your DEX for Neo. When you go forward and then you start working with other blockchains and creating DEXs for other blockchains, will Switcheo token be used for those as well, or will you come up with a new token for the different chains? So
our plan is to use the same token because it's on a different blockchain. Of course, there needs to be a strategy to move from one chain to another. there's a few. It's right now still in R&D kind of phase. We have identified a few strategies to do this. One is to use another cross-chain architecture. The other is to do cross swaps of our token. There are other protocols that we are looking at, but we don't really want to talk about those now because it's still quite early. But the idea is that we launch on other chains. Even though that the token cannot be used immediately, we'll work very quickly into moving it, to allowing it to be moved across the different blockchains.
Yeah, I saw in your white paper where you mentioned One Chain as well. I'm an investor in One, and I was excited to see that mentioned in your white paper. They seem to be a team that you could work with, and especially with what they're trying to build.
How many tokens? Sorry, go ahead.
So One Chain is one of the protocols that we identify as a possibility. They are still a bit early in the development stage, but we are quite excited to implement the solution if you see everything fits correctly. Yeah.
Right.
So how many tokens are on based on Neo today, and how many are known coming in the future?
Right. So I think for Neo, it's about 20 plus, 27, I think. I'm not sure. Maybe Jack is more familiar with the whole ICO ecosystem, but I think it's about 20 or so.
Okay, so they've already run 20 tokens that are that would be tradable on a platform like this.
Is that right, Jack?
Yeah. So there's, I think, 26, the last time I checked. But I'm actually not entirely sure how many more there are, because you have so many contracts launching every now and then, right? So but for ICO,
sound just died.
I'm not keeping track of all of these all of the Neo ICOs, but because there's so many more coming out. Like Neo is becoming a more so much more mature for people to develop on. So you see this huge influx of new developers that's jumping on the Neo blockchain, which makes, because I think there's so many more projects coming out that it's really hard to just just keep track of. So I think right now we're not really sure the exact amount, but it's about 20 plus that's currently built on it, and there's a few more coming out in the near future, next.
Are there places right now where people can trade these tokens, like the existing Neo tokens, or when this launches, is this going to fill a gap for a lot of tokens that currently don't have any real liquidity beyond over the counter?
Yep. So yeah, there are actually a few centralized exchange that list NEP5 tokens in particular. So for example, KuCoin, they are one of them that has been listing NEP5, and soon to be Binance. Yeah. But in terms of decentralized exchanges, I think we will be the first to list NEP5 tokens. Yeah.
And is your plan, as soon as new tokens are released, when new NEP5 ICOs come out, is your plan to be, to have those listed within days on your next, or not next, but your DEX?
So the plan is to eventually be a bit like how Delta is, where you can actually just put in the contract hash and then fill in the details about the token, and then anyone can immediately start trading. We are a bit concerned about some security aspects at the start, and also because we want to use a slow ramp up period to do marketing, publicity, etc. So that won't be immediate, but that's the eventual plan. That's correct.
I know one of the issues right now is kind of one of the opportunities for a decentralized exchange to actually be used is because it's not listed on a centralized exchange, where it requires, these submissions processes and who knows, politics, whatever else is applied. So is there a little bit of this challenge to be able to be where the liquidity goes for a new token? Is that part of the sales pitch, I guess, to be able to make Switcheo something that's actually used? How are y'all trying to pitch this beyond a hypothetical DEXs are good, they're better than a centralized exchange, you should use them type of argument?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. That's one of our primary marketing angles on our DEX that users will like. And I can say quite confidently that DEXs and Switcheo in particular will definitely be one of the first people listing any Bit5 tokens the moment they become tradable.
The token itself, one of the things that I've been battling with regards to just ICOs in general is they all have a token attached. And my question sometimes is, well, does this need a token in real life? Or is there not a reason why it can't just use the primary networks token? And is the token just being used essentially as an equity tool? So my question for you is, why do you need the Switcheo token beyond being able to raise funds to build the platform and create interest in it?
Right. So I think that's quite a few uses for our token. Initially, I believe it was mentioned elsewhere, but we wanted to use the token as a revenue share mechanism, and having the token there gives us the opportunity to move to that in the future. But at the launch, that's not what we're going to do. The other thing about the token is really it allows us to have a common mechanism where you can do your cross-chain value transfer. Having a common mechanism makes it actually, having a common token where we control completely actually makes it a lot easier to do your cross-chain trading later on. Because let's say if you do Ethereum versus Neo versus Cardano, then you run the problem where it's difficult to track the value of what you're trading across the different chains. I believe there are some solutions, some protocols that kind of try to solve this like loop break, but honestly, for DEX, the most straightforward, the simplest way is just to have a base token that you can, a native token that you can cross swap across different blockchains.
Obviously, you won't be trading in fiat pairs, I would assume, and there probably are no plans to do that.
I actually don't want to rule that out, but I also don't want to promise or comment on anything at this point.
Okay, fair enough. Have you considered doing adding a stable coin to the mix, like MakerDAO or Basecoin or Haven?
Yes. Again, that's a bit early, but
okay.
We are in talks with Alchemist, which is the new stable coin that's supposed to be developed sometime at the end of the year, I think. So that's one possibility that we are looking at.
At the end of the day, when I talk to people that trade tokens, will be the users of your product, the thing that prevents them from using most exchanges, not just decentralized exchanges, but small centralized exchanges as well, is just purely around liquidity issues and not being able to have an order or a bid on the other side of the book. So how are you addressing that challenge? Because to me, it seems that's going to be the DEX that wins, is the one that can bring liquidity to the table.
Correct. So that problem in particular, I feel it's not a technical problem. It's really a marketing and publicity kind of problem. That's why we are behind the scenes. We're actually really working really hard to build a very strong marketing team, because we are mainly technical people. But we understand the importance of marketing and putting out our exchange, our product in front of many people. And I feel that's really the key to solving the liquidity problem. On the technical side, as long as we are comparable, or we are at least as good as a centralized exchange, then there really shouldn't be any difference there.
What would be, say, in 6 months, after you've been open for 6 months, what would be a good goal to have achieved as far as liquidity or daily volume, or whatever metric you want to use? But what would be a good goal in, say, 6 months and then, say, a year from now?
Right. We have our own internal targets that we talk about, the volume, the trading volume. That I don't think I should say that.
Okay.
But definitely we want to be one of the exchanges that are high up on the list of CoinMarketCap, whatever, and definitely the top 3 DEXs. That's really our goal.
Big goal. I like it. I guess just a couple random questions to kind of just peek inside the team and understand y'all as a person. So when you first kicked off, it was a contest and you picked DEX as your concept at the contest. What were some of the other ideas that y'all tossed around but decided not to do?
We thought of a few, but this was the straight up winner. After that, we actually mentioned a few. So we are entrepreneurs. Our backgrounds, we all have started sold businesses, etc. So whatever we do, we want to make sure it actually makes money.
Good.
We're not doing some, I don't know, community service work or whatever. So one other idea was really escrow services, where nowadays pooling of funds is common for ICOs, or escrow in general. It's a useful concept. It uses the trustless nature of blockchains. So there was another possibility. Basically, an escrow sort of service. We didn't really conceptualize it fully, but
right.
Now that y'all are a team building something for a blockchain application, what do you see as key infrastructure needs for the economy to do better, to make building applications on the blockchain simpler or more powerful or whatever?
Right. So I think I'll talk about the Neo blockchain. We didn't mention which blockchain, right? But since we are on Neo first, for the Neo blockchain in particular, I think the community around it it's decent. We still need more. It still needs a bit more work to catch up with the Ethereum ecosystem, especially in terms of testing, development, security tools. Because there are so many languages. Like I see every day, someone's trying to make a new compiler, allowing a new language to be compiled into Neo VM code. But then there's no real tools to ensure the security of the VM, etc. So like formal verification tools, which there's a lot in the Ethereum ecosystem. So I think to gain very good adoption as compared to Ethereum, those are the things: security tools, development environment. And on the other hand, I think I mentioned previously, it's about having more people support the core Neo team in terms of building up the feature set or improving the core Neo infrastructure.
Let's say everything goes right for your project and you become not only the dominant Neo DEX option, but also in general, you kind of set the standard for what a DEX should be. Do you think there is a time, and if so, what time, what year, do you think decentralized exchanges can overtake centralized exchanges as the dominant place to trade?
I think this is the year actually that you'll see a lot of DEXs gaining volume, getting market share. So I wouldn't say that you will completely overtake the centralized exchanges because they are quite entrenched still. But I think by the end of the year, you'll see a lot of DEXs creeping up in volume in the centralized exchanges. And eventually, I think it won't make sense for fully centralized exchanges at least to exist, mainly because you then take a trustless token and then you centralize it completely. That doesn't make too much sense. So I feel there's going to be a shift in the thinking and how exchanges work in general.
Awesome.
And the goal is for the exchange to be open. Is it March 19th? Is that the goal?
That was the goal, but I really want the audits to be done. I want the bug bounty campaign to be ran first. So right now the aim is still for April, but we are still in testing phase. So I can't give a fixed date yet. For March 19th, the tokens will be unlocked. And there might be other exchanges that may want to list us, but I can't talk about specifics now.
Okay. Well, guys, thank you so much. I think you have a really young, impressive team, and we wish you a ton of luck and success.
Yeah, and from my perspective, we've talked on this podcast nearly every week about decentralized exchanges, the role they play today versus the role that we think they'll play in the future. So I certainly agree with you that they will play a big role in the future. And if it can be as quick as you seem to think it's capable of being, then that would be really exciting. So we appreciate y'all coming on and sharing a little bit about your story. And we look forward to seeing how things go
keeping up
upon the launch. So best of luck and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.
So Derek,
yes,
what do you think about our chat?
I think it was good. I think the language and the fact that it's around the world, it is a little challenge to listen all the way through. So if you made it, big props to you.
And thank you. We spent probably 45 minutes before we ever started the interview trying to get the technical difficulties sorted out, and we never really did. So we went with what we had, and I hope that you still find it valuable.
But honestly, with a lot of other ICO reviews and interviews, I think the fact that we've edited it down a little bit, we've done a whole lot more work than most people in the space. So.
Awesome. So what's your takeaway? I mean, like I said, going in, I don't know anything about Switcheo other than what we just learned. And really, I don't know anything about Neo tokens and what that whole economy looks like. So what's the potential here in your mind?
I think it's really big. Just from having invested in other things like this, I think, their hard cap is like 8.3, 8.7 million. I think their market cap on that open will probably be at 12 million is what they said. That's small. And I think if they are able to beat
market cap on open because 25% of tokens are staying in.
Exactly. Yes. So if they're able to beat everybody to the punch and to be the first DEX, which is trading the net 5 tokens, then they're going to have first mover advantage. I think the next, which is City of Zion, I think they're supposed to open in maybe 3, 4, 5 months.
Okay, so they're not just beating people to the punch by a couple of weeks.
That's right. There is another project that I can't remember the name of it, that'll come out, but I think the big one is next. And so I think they'll have open field for 3 or 4 months. And you do have a number of Neo ICOs that'll be kicking off. And so I think it'll be a lot like Ether Delta, where it's the first place that you can buy it before it's listed on Binance or KuCoin. So I think
in that gap between whenever they release their DEX and then whenever the next competitor comes along, there will be other tokens that are newly available to trade.
That's right. So I think that's going to be an advantage. They claim that their UI is really going to be good. We'll just take it for granted. And I'll say that they seem very confident. Ivan seems like he knows what he's doing. Now we'll see again. And then the other part of their roadmap, which is to try to be the first DEX for other chains. I think they mentioned Qtum.
Yeah, they mentioned Qtum or Quantum.
Quantum, yeah, however you say that.
I've always said Qtum, so I'm glad he said that.
But I love their idea of being the first DEX for other chains and then being able to tie it all together, particularly if they go with one chain.
Yeah, because right now, I mean, a lot of DEXs are specific really for just the tokens on that network. Like I think of Waves, for instance. It's probably one of the most well-used ones for Waves tokens, but it's all just Waves tokens. So like, for instance, they could say, well, we want to build a DEX that's compatible with the Waves platform, and now all these tokens have a secondary decentralized exchange that they could go to. But he didn't mention that as a possibility. I'm sure they're looking at the ones like Qtum. I don't know that there's a decentralized exchange for Qtum. So
I don't think there is.
Okay, so essentially they'd be creating one decentralized exchange that supports multiple blockchains.
I don't know if it. We asked, will you use the Switcheo token for all of them? And he said yes, although there seemed to be a little pause on that. But assuming they use Switcheo as the same token for the other, which is what he mentioned.
Yeah, because one of my big things is like, why does some of these projects, especially adapt, like a decentralized application, like why does it necessarily need its own token? And his argument to that was basically that being able to go cross chain, the token is the interchange mechanism, the bridge for that. So I get that. I mean, that makes some sense to me, so that it's more than just an equity mechanism to be able to raise funds. That was pretty convincing. I still am I'm a little uncertain in terms of one, if the DEX will always well, if it'll ever be like the dominant trading platform.
Right.
And then even within that, like there's so many, like between various coins having a DEX that's basically catering to that coin and a handful of tokens, or the competition that is being built up already within the DEX ecosystem, and whether or not one that is trying to say, hey, we're going to be a DEX and we're going to be a DEX for all these different blockchains, whether that can really stand out. But if they can do it, like you said, it seems like the potential is there, at least from a market cap perspective, when you look at the other DEXs that are already live.
It's tiny. And there was one thing that just occurred to me that was interesting in the interview, because I put together a question, which was basically to ask, will you guys be using or consider using a stable coin in the middle of your DEX? Because to me, that makes a lot of sense. Because if you're going to be a DEX, you're probably not going to have a fiat on-ramp or fiat, right? So the ability to kind of put your money aside and, in market downturns, et cetera. But we asked him that question, and I was assuming it was a clear no. Did you notice his answer?
Yeah, he kind of seemed iffy on that. Like there might be a
exactly
for that.
It's almost like playing Battleship, and you've kind of hit a peg.
Maybe there's something there.
There is something there. So I don't know. That'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, to be frank, I don't know enough about decentralized exchanges to even understand the possible limitations for bringing on fiat. Do you?
I don't.
Now, bringing on a stable token makes sense to me because it's just a token, and you're creating a stable base. One thing I do know about decentralized exchanges is they always tend to price everything in the base pair for whatever it's built on. So I do wonder, in this case, like, I guess they're going to price Neo tokens in Neo, and they're going to price, if they launch an Ethereum version, they're going to price those in Ethereum. I don't know.
Well, no, I think they'll use, listening to another interview, I think they're going to price them. They'll price it in Neo, and they'll price it in their token.
Oh, okay.
So they'll have a pair of Neo and Switcheo.
Interesting. Okay.
And that's that. And then I'm sure they'll do gas as well. So probably Neo, gas, and Switcheo, and a combination of those three.
I wish some of these would just do it Bitcoin pair because I can actually understand it. What were your thoughts in terms of overall, like their answers, their preparedness? Like, do they seem like they've got things put together? They understand what they're doing to you?
It did. Ivan seems like a deep thinker to me. Of course, that may be also language too, because he's speaking English as a second language, so maybe he's taking it in before he answers his questions. But I was impressed.
Yeah, I think overall it seems pretty good to me. I'm not sure if I would say they have anything that they've mentioned to us, at least, that's going to be like a super standout thing. In the sense of like, you still run into the same problems. Like their answer to liquidity was marketing. And we've, of course, seen that work with, I assume that's going to include a referral program. I feel like maybe the decentralized exchange that has a great referral program can do it. Like that's how Binance became Binance. And Binance is now the primary altcoin exchange volume-wise. So,
I think that just automatically by default, as long as they have the open field of being the only Neo DEX, honestly, they don't even need a market.
Okay. Maybe I'm just underestimating the size of the Neo ecosystem.
Yeah, I think you are.
Okay. So it's pretty big.
Yeah. I mean, what's the market cap of Neo right now? Is it?
I have no idea.
8 or 10?
Yeah, probably 8 or 10 billion.
Yeah. There's a big fan base.
What's your understanding in terms of how Neo is looked at compared to Ethereum or other platforms in Southeast Asia in particular?
Honestly, from a Southeastern Asian perspective, I don't know. I couldn't answer it.
But from what it seems like to me, and from what he was talking about in terms of, I think it was actually Henry that was talking about, people getting excited about working on the platform. Seems like there is a lot of excitement about, not just tokens on Neo, but also people building things and getting involved in the Neo ecosystem, I think so. Which is good to hear, because my assumption has been, for the most part, that none of these really have anybody using them.
Yeah, well, I was really gung-ho until the stuff that came out over I guess when we're recording this, came out over the weekend with the node that went down and how it...
Yeah, there's this huge critique of Neo that eventually led to a statement from...
Dahong Fei.
Yeah, from Dahong Fei, the founder of Neo. And so obviously it hit a nerve, because this just started as a tweet, and I don't have a link right now to the tweet and the breakdown, but basically he was saying like their whole thing about their consensus mechanism and the way all this stuff works is not operating the way it should because it failed the first test, basically.
That's right.
And
I think there was a language problem because one of the things that was said, let's see, let me look at this real fast. Someone spoke for Neo, and he just
the research and development manager.
Yeah, Malcolm Ritter, and he mentioned, and I think this was a lost in translation kind of moment. He mentioned that what happened was an edge case. And I think Americans took that to mean that it was like a
shouldn't have happened,
or just edge case, meaning it's like we didn't expect it,
right.
Which was just basically one going down, which would be crazy if that was the case. I think De Hong corrected it and called it a corner case. So I don't think it was edge as in like not likely to happen. I think he was just using a different word for that.
Okay.
And that's what a lot of people jumped on.
In his response, though, the thing that stuck out to me was basically the admission that, yeah, we know this is super centralized.
Well, yeah. I mean, and they don't, but they also don't make they're very clear about that. You heard Ivan talking about how that it's, you sacrifice. You
scalable, but not decentralized.
Exactly.
I do wonder, unless they have, stuff up their sleeves to make it both scalable and decentralized, like something's got to give at some point, right?
Right. I mean, they claim that their plans are to increase the number of nodes and then slowly to start, taking their hands off the nodes. But they also said intentionally that they're doing this on purpose. That
they're talking about going from 7 to 13 nodes, and then eventually, years from now, maybe 50 nodes. And you compare that to other blockchains, and it's laughable. So it's still hyper centralized, even with, let's say there's 50 or even 100 nodes.
Right.
That's super centralized. The super, too many points of failure for a project that 5 years from now could be not worth 8 or 10 billion or whatever, but it could be worth 50 or $100 billion. Mm-hmm. And a lot of stuff built on that ecosystem. I could just foresee potential problems. And the reason I think that's worth bringing up is because we're talking to someone that's trying to put together a decentralized exchange. And are we decentralizing an exchange on a platform that's super centralized? I don't know if I don't know. Maybe
I think De Hong Fei would, if I could channel him at the moment, I think he would say that look, we have a baby of a project, and if we throw it open right now, it's not going to get built like it should get built. And so his argument for centralization at this point is that we're going to end up with a much better product in 2, 3, 4 years than we would if we went ahead and opened ourselves up to all the politics.
The politics of governance.
Correct.
And I totally see that. At the same time, I think, if someone that was really gung-ho about decentralized governance was here right now, and I admit I'm not either way, I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit, they'd be, super squirmy about saying that, decentralized governance can't work from the get-go, that you have to have someone's master plan, where really it seems like the whole Neo idea is based on a master plan from the inside and then unleashing it to everyone else.
It's really interesting. A story is popping in my head. I have a couple kids that I've adopted from China, so we have a good bit of experience with that culture. Okay. And it's really, this is sort of an American idea versus a Chinese idea. There's a city in China called Chongqing, and it was known forever as a city full of thieves where people would steal stuff, and it was really bad and people wouldn't go there. And so the government was looking at what's going on, and what they found was that thieves were getting away on scooters or motorcycles. And so this is a city of like 10 or 15 million.
Yeah, it's huge.
And so
college roommate was born there.
Okay. So the city authority said, you know what, we're going to outlaw scooters and motorcycles. So they did it, and the stealing stopped. And so that's what you can do when you have a centralized government, is you can make big changes and have big effects. And so I think it's really interesting from a cultural perspective that maybe is where they're coming from.
Yeah, maybe so. And I don't have any big problem with Neo personally. It does seem like they have some really interesting ideas. I know from a layman's perspective, like the fact that you can drop Neo in their wallet and earn gas with as little Neo as you may have, like that's actually pretty opening to a consumer user of Neo versus like having to have a master node of 1,000 Neo or 10,000 Neo in order to be able to earn gas. I think some of those concepts are really great from Neo, but we're just looking at these platform wars, and this isn't obviously a hit on Switcheo. This is our post game. Like, why does this matter in the context of Neo more broadly?
Right.
So maybe Neo will stand out. Maybe it won't. I do think maybe that's smart for Switcheo to say, look, we're starting on Neo because this is a comfort zone or whatever. There's a big opportunity here to get 6 months free or, before the competitor gets here. I do think it's smart if they can pull it off, if they can manage to keep their focus on creating a quality exchange and do so on multiple blockchains, then that could be something truly unique, because right now I don't really know of anything that's doing that.
I don't think so either.
So that'd be really cool.
Very good.
I liked it. I liked hearing from them. They're super young. I mean, this is like most teams, and they're coming out of the gate with a tiny little team trying to do a fairly big project. So we'll see if they succeed. Looking forward to seeing it. And as you mentioned before, I mean, our disclosures would be that I have potential future interest of buying this, and I think you're
and I have invested in the private sale.
Yeah, so that's our take. We think it's interesting, and hope you all enjoyed this. And we're going to try it a few more times and see if we can catch our groove. And yeah, we'll catch you on the next one. All right, have a good one.
Monuments crumble in the blink of an eye. The easy river has just run dry. In a house of cards, I feel the breeze wound so tight I can barely